Have you ever wondered how the Israel-Palestine conflict began and why it has persisted for so long? Well, let's take a journey through history. The roots of the conflict can be traced back to the late 19th century when Jewish nationalism, known as Zionism, and Arab nationalism first emerged. However, the pivotal moment came in 1948 with the formation of the State of Israel. This event, often referred to as the Nakba, or catastrophe by Palestinians, led to a mass displacement of people, with approximately 700,000 Palestinians fleeing or being expelled from their homes. This dispossession has been a major source of resentment and a key driver of conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. Fast forward to 1967, and we arrive at the Six-Day War. This war resulted in Israel capturing and subsequently occupying the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem, territories that are home to millions of Palestinians. This occupation, now in its sixth decade, is characterized by control over movement, access to resources, and the establishment of Israeli settlements, which are considered illegal under international law. The First and Second Intifadas, Palestinian uprisings against the Israeli occupation, further intensified the conflict. The First Intifada in the late 1980s and early 90s, and the Second, or Al-Aqsa Intifada, in the early 2000s were characterized by widespread protests, violence, and a significant loss of life. In the midst of this turmoil, there was a glimmer of hope: the Oslo Accords. Signed in the 1990s, these agreements marked the first time that Palestinians and Israelis recognized each other's right to self-determination. However, despite these promising steps, the accords failed to resolve key issues such as the status of Jerusalem and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. This failure has contributed to the continuation of the conflict, with both sides blaming the other for its persistence. So, as we can see, the Israel-Palestine conflict is a complex issue rooted in decades of historical and political complexities. This history helps us understand why the conflict has proven so difficult to resolve, and why it continues to impact the lives of millions of people today. But what has led to the recent escalation of violence, you may ask? Well, it's a complex mosaic of events and actions, each adding fuel to the already blazing fire. Let's rewind our clocks to the fateful day of a car ramming incident in Tel Aviv. In a tragic turn of events, an Italian citizen lost their life. Subsequent violence saw the unfortunate killing of two British Israeli women near the West Bank, further intensifying the grim situation. Now you might think these events were isolated, but they were in fact the catalysts that triggered a chain reaction. The tensions reached a boiling point when Israeli police decided to raid Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the holiest sites in Islam. This move was met with widespread condemnation, and the response was swift and severe. In retaliation to the raid, rocket attacks were launched, followed by counter-airstrikes. It was as if a match had been struck, igniting a powder keg of resentment and anger that had been simmering under the surface for decades. The rapid succession of these events sent shockwaves around the world, causing an immediate and significant shift in public sentiment. Sympathy for the Palestinians among Americans reached an all-time high, particularly among Democrats. The power of social media played a significant role in this shift, shaping perceptions and bringing the harsh realities of the conflict to the forefront of global consciousness. Despite this shift, overall favorable views of Israel remain strong in the U.S., particularly among Republicans. Their support for Israel, influenced by evangelical beliefs and national security concerns, remained steadfast, even amidst the escalating violence. The escalation of conflict was not just a result of actions taken on the ground, but also the result of a shifting narrative and changing perceptions. The growing sympathy for Palestinians, especially among younger demographics, has the potential to impact future U.S. policy decisions. These events have resulted in an alarming escalation of violence, leading to an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. The world watches, hoping for a swift resolution, but the path to peace remains fraught with obstacles. But what has been the response of the international community to this escalating conflict? The answer, unfortunately, is one of deep concern, but with limited success in effecting change. The international community represented by various nations and bodies like the United Nations, has been vocal in its condemnation of the escalating violence. There have been urgent calls for immediate intervention to protect the lives of innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. The United Nations has issued multiple resolutions demanding an end to the bloodshed, echoing the sentiments of nations worldwide. Yet the challenge lies not just in the condemnation of the violence, but in the practicalities of achieving a ceasefire. Despite numerous calls for peace talks, the violence shows no signs of abating. The complexities of the conflict, coupled with deep-seated historical grievances and conflicting claims to the land, have made it difficult for peace efforts to take hold. The international community's role in this conflict extends beyond mere words. Various countries have offered humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people, providing much-needed relief in the form of food, medical aid, and other essential supplies. Yet the blockade on Gaza imposed by the Israeli government has made the delivery of this aid increasingly challenging. The international response also involves attempts to mediate the conflict. The United Nations, for instance, has called for an immediate ceasefire and has urged both sides to come to the negotiating table. However, these efforts have been met with resistance, and the path to a peaceful resolution remains fraught with obstacles. Moreover, the response to the conflict is not uniform across the international community. While sympathy for the Palestinians is growing, especially among younger demographics and certain political factions, overall favorable views of Israel remain strong in some quarters. This polarization complicates the international response and further impedes the path to peace. Despite numerous calls for peace and intervention, the violence shows no signs of abating, leading to a tragic loss of life and destruction. The situation calls for a concerted, unified international effort, one that goes beyond mere condemnation and works towards a tangible, lasting solution. But what does this conflict mean for the people on the ground? The escalating tensions and relentless violence between Israel and Palestine are creating a devastating humanitarian crisis. Thousands of innocent lives have been lost, and countless others have been displaced from their homes, their lives turned upside down by a conflict they didn't choose. Picture, if you will, the bustling streets of Gaza filled with the echoes of laughter, commerce, and life. Now those same streets are shattered by the thunderous roars of airstrikes. The buildings crumble under the force, and the people are left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives amidst the rubble. Homes, schools, hospitals, and places of worship, once the heart of their communities, now lie in ruins. The loss of life is staggering, but the toll on the living is equally heartbreaking. The survivors, many of them children, are left traumatized, their futures uncertain. They live in constant fear, their lives punctuated by sirens and explosions, their dreams replaced by nightmares of violence and loss. But the crisis doesn't stop there. The Israeli government has imposed a blockade on Gaza, turning it into an open-air prison. This blockade has led to severe shortages of food, medicine, and other basic necessities. Imagine for a moment the desperation of a mother unable to feed her child, or the despair of a father unable to find medicine for his sick family. This is the grim reality for the people of Gaza. The blockade has also crippled the economy, leading to skyrocketing unemployment and poverty rates. People who once had jobs and a sense of purpose now face a bleak future with little to no opportunities. The lights of Gaza, once vibrant and full of life, are now dimming under the weight of this crisis. This is not just a political or territorial conflict. This is a human crisis of unimaginable proportions. The people of Palestine are not just statistics on a news report. They are mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters. They are people with dreams, hopes, and aspirations. Now caught in the crossfire of a conflict they did not start. The humanitarian crisis in Palestine is a stark reminder of the devastating impact of this conflict on innocent civilians. It's a sobering testament to the urgent need for a peaceful resolution, not just for the sake of political stability, but for the millions of lives hanging in the balance. So, where do we go from here? Is there a path to peace? This question weighs heavily on the minds of all those witnessing the escalating conflict between Israel and Palestine. The road to resolution is far from straightforward. given the deep-seated historical grievances and contrasting claims to the land. Yet the pursuit of peace remains paramount. One potential solution that has been proposed time and time again is the two-state solution. This would involve the establishment of an independent Palestine alongside Israel, each respecting the other's sovereignty and right to exist. However, the practicality of this solution is heavily contested, with the continuous expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank posing a significant obstacle. Another potential route towards peace lies in international mediation. The United Nations, the European Union, and other global powers could play a crucial role in facilitating dialogue between the two parties. But the success of this approach hinges on the willingness of Israel and Palestine to come to the negotiating table with open minds and genuine intent to resolve their differences. The complexity of the situation is further compounded by the influence of external actors. The politics of the Middle East are intricately woven with the interests of global superpowers, making the conflict between Israel and Palestine a chess piece in a much larger game of geopolitical strategy. This adds another layer of difficulty to the peace process, as the resolution of the conflict must align with the strategic interests of these global players. Furthermore, the path to peace is not solely about political negotiation. It also involves addressing the humanitarian crisis at hand, providing immediate relief to those affected, rebuilding destroyed infrastructure, and ensuring the basic human rights of the Palestinian people are all integral steps in healing the wounds of this conflict. Finally, any path to peace must involve a conscious effort to challenge and change the narratives that fuel this conflict. This includes promoting empathy, understanding, and mutual respect between Israelis and Palestinians, striving to replace the narrative of us versus them with a narrative of shared humanity. The path to peace is fraught with obstacles, but it is the only way to end the bloodshed and bring about a lasting resolution to the Israel-Palestine conflict.